So today's session is going to be a little bit interactive. I could ask you all to get out your phones. I don't usually ask people to get out their phones when I'm talking, but this is an exception. And scan the QR code. This will be interactive. It'll come up a few other times in the presentation, so if you don't get it, that's okay. You can get it on one of the other slides. So just a bit about me. My name is Joel Dickson. I'm a Director of Engineering at Agoda, NUnit contributor. Who here uses NUnit? No .NET people here. How about JUnit? Okay, a few people. XUnit, oh, go home. No, I'm joking. So yeah, the NUnit is a unit testing framework for .NET. It's the best one. I'm an open source advocate. I've been going to Thailand for business for about 18 years. I used to come over to Singapore a bit about 18 years ago when I was first starting my business in Thailand. These days though, I don't run my own business anymore. I work for Agoda. I'm originally from Australia. I live in Bangkok these days and I like beer and sport. Watching sport, that is. So for those of you that don't know who Agoda is, we're a part of the Booking Holdings group. Who here books with Agoda? Yeah. Okay, who books with Booking.com? Okay, thank you. You're still helping my share price too. So Booking.com and Agoda are in the same group. We operate as different companies though. Agoda is more focused on the Asian market, whereas Booking.com is more European. Yeah, and we've got a bunch of other companies in the group. Agoda works closely with Rocket Travel, which is our counterpart in Chicago. We're doing a lot of cool stuff over there too. Just a bit of context about Agoda, like the scale that we work at. We've got a very big data platform at Agoda. We do 4 trillion Kafka messages a day. We've got over 30 petabytes of data in our big data cluster. We're approaching 1 million CPU cores across our data and our private cloud cluster. We don't use public cloud, it's too expensive. We run things in-house. We've got 1,000 active A/B tests at any one time on our primary website, which means if you open the Agoda website on 2 different laptops next to each other, it's almost a statistical impossibility you'll get the same site with the volume of A/B testing that we do. So enough about me and Agoda. That was just giving you guys some context. We're here about something about product, right? So one of the questions, and for those of you that haven't scanned the QR code, it'll come up a bit if you want to scan it now. You can smash that like button too, and it'll have little rainbow colors in the corner. So the question that I've been asking myself for probably about 2 decades now is, how do I build an awesome team? I've been working in as a development manager for close to 20 years, managing teams from Australia to Thailand, some in Singapore as well at one stage. And how to make an awesome, successful software engineering team is a question I've been asking. And I'm going to start with Agile and Scrum, because when I first started out, I was always told that, you know, hey, the best teams, they use Agile and Scrum, and that's how you have an awesome team, is you use Scrum and then you're awesome, right? So that's where I started. So that's where we're going to start. I'm going to start with a little bit of history about the rise of Agile, what went wrong with Scrum, enter product engineering, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the aspects of product engineering, what it is, and a few summaries and takeaway. There's also a Q&A in the app. If you've got the app up, you can click the Q&A button and go and ask me some questions for the end, and I'll go through them. So I'll talk a little bit about the rise of Agile. So everyone knows the Agile Manifesto, right? Yeah, I hope so. This is a LeSS conference, so I've got high expectations of you guys, right? So I'm going to start with a bit of an Agile quiz. So you can scan that QR code if you haven't. And you can participate in the quiz, and I hope that you guys get all these questions right. Otherwise, what are we doing at a LeSS conference? Maybe you're learning, that's why. So is this in the Agile Manifesto? Business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. Yes or no? Is this in the Agile Manifesto? Again, high expectations of you guys, especially because there's a lot of LeSS trainers here. Come on, guys. Okay, I've got 3 questions. I'm not going to tell you what the right answer is until the end. All right. few more answers coming in. Got 29 out of 46. All right, I'll keep going. All right. Is this in the Agile Manifesto? Responding to change over following a plan? Yes or no? I think we've got general consensus, and it was on my former slide. So you know that one. All right, next one. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. Yes or no? Is this in the Agile Manifesto? All right, that's interesting. So, did you read page 2? That's my next question. Because there is 2 pages to this, and not a lot of people click through and read the second page. What I displayed on my first slide was the first page. This is the second page, and it's got some really good stuff on it. So all those things that I presented was on the Agile Manifesto. You can see here, and there's some really good stuff. So, now that we've tested our Agile knowledge, I'll get into a brief history of Agile for a moment. Like, the Agile Manifesto is something that I really swear by. It's great. But basically, Scrum started, Agile Manifesto is more recent. Like, Scrum started with Jess Sutherland back in the 80s. The first company he used it at was actually a bank, which was interesting in the 80s, and it was quite successful. XP came around in the 90s. I was alive then. There may be some people here that weren't. It's a younger generation these days. And I remember reading some blog posts from people working at Microsoft on the Visual Studio team that were experimenting with XP in the early days, and it was fascinating stuff. It wasn't really until after the year 2000, though, the Agile Manifesto came out. I think it was 2001, 2002, something like that. Someone can probably correct me. That, you know, there was really a lot of hype. And then around, you know, all these frameworks started to get big. And around 2004, 2005, Scrum just exploded, right? And it got massive, and everyone and it suddenly it turned. It used to be Scrum in the early days it was this like the underground thing that you did if you were like a rebel software development team. You know, it was the trendsetters that were doing Scrum. But after it started to get really popular, everyone wanted to do it, and it became a very top-down thing. CTOs started asking their teams to do Scrum. And it's like, what's this Scrum thing? How do we implement it? And this is where things started to go bad. So I'm not going to complain about Scrum. I think it's actually a good framework if it's used properly. The problem is that most people don't use it properly. So there is this thing called bad Scrum. I don't know if so Scrum started about 20 years ago, like I said, as it gained popularity. Many project managers lost their jobs, right? Because we don't need project managers anymore. We need Scrum Masters. We need to do Scrum. And we've got self-managing teams. We can get rid of these guys. So what happened was this. Does anyone know the PMI, the Project Management Institute? Yeah, they came out with this thing called the Agile Certified Practitioner, which was a 2-hour online course that you could do, and suddenly you were certified to practice Agile and teach people about Scrum. This fascinated me, because when I got my Scrum Master certification, it was a 3-day in-person intense course, and you needed that to learn about what Scrum was and all the values and how to use it properly. You cannot do a 2-hour online course. And this is, I think, what led to bad Scrum. I don't know if there's bad less. I don't think there is. Maybe that's what safe is. Yeah, but there definitely is bad Scrum, and I don't want you guys to confuse that with less. I actually like less. We use a lot of it at Agoda. So some of the qualities of bad Scrum: rituals over results, an overemphasis on velocity, inflexible sprint lengths. I'm wondering if you guys have seen stuff like this before. Your product backlog becomes a wish list. You lose connection between backlog items and real customer needs. Organizations applying Scrum uniformly across different team types and teams. This was a common one in the early days. It's like, you guys must do Scrum. You know, and then you have these Agile certified practitioners come in and go, this is how to do a stand-up. This is how to do backlog refinement. This is how to do sprint planning. Now you're doing Scrum. Yeah. No. Reduced innovation, over planning and strict adherence to sprints left little room for experimentation. And teams become risk adverse, focusing on meeting sprint goals rather than solving customer problems. So I'm curious, if you guys have got the app still open, who suffers from any of these problems? You can select multiple. I hope you select none, but I'm not that much of an idealist. Yeah, the first one's covered up by the QR code, sorry. I've got to talk to the developers at Mentimeter and get them to fix that. I paid a couple $100 for this for G-Bug. That's interesting. Risk adverse is the winner. It's curious. Every audience it's different. All right, thanks guys. So should we be looking at Scrum or even Agile at all? Whenever any of my teams gets frustrated by Scrum or something to do with Scrum, the first thing they say is, let's try Kanban. And I'm convinced the reason they do that is because when they look at their Jira boards, there's this button about Kanban and they're curious about what it is. All right? But I'm not sure, like XP is definitely something I'd try if you're interested. I love XP, but none of my teams do it. But one of the things that I've been doing is not just looking at Scrum. You know, like I said, I've been looking in the past 20 years about what makes successful teams, and I've been looking at what other companies in our scope at Agoda are doing, and looking at what processes are emerging, and seeing what of those we can use. And actually, this is how I found BAS about 10 years ago. Is one of the things I was looking at was LeSS and trying to use that at Agoda to improve our team structures. So I've been looking around a lot. And so the question I've been asking is all these companies have extraordinary products like Spotify, Amazon, Airbnb. You know, what makes them different? What are they doing with their teams that can make them make these awesome products that's different? So how do they make them and how are they different? So I've come to learn this term called product engineering, and it's not something it's something that I found was quite ubiquitous with a lot of the American guys that I was working with. Something about Agoda, I mentioned we had 1,500 engineers. Most of them are in Bangkok, and we've expatriated about half of them. So we've got about 700 engineers in Bangkok that come from all corners of the world. So I've been talking to these guys about their experiences and you know, what they do in other companies. And a lot of the American guys were using this term called product engineering, and they came from companies like Amazon. And so I started to use this term as kind of an umbrella term for the research I was doing. And the other question that was posed to me that I presented about last year is, you know, comparing this to Agile and seeing what the overlap is. So let's explore this. So a bit of a disclaimer, there's no manual for this. It's basically just a collection of real world emergent processes that I've seen at companies that are quite successful. And a lot of these we're using at Agoda too. So what makes a product engineering team? So they have purpose. So they innovate on behalf of the customer. So one of the questions that I ask my teams a lot over the last few years as we've been evolving is, who do you serve, right? And when I started asking them this a few years ago, their first answer was my PO. And that's the bad answer, right? But now when I ask them that, my teams are in the hotel-facing side of Agoda. We do extranets and APIs for our partners. The answer to that question is our partners, which is essentially our customers. That's who we serve. And it's a big part of product engineering. Compromising products that customers love. It's a big part of product engineering is UX. We have a big emphasis at Agoda on performance. We look at stats like Google's LCP, INP metrics, huge focus on things like that, and our product people support this. You know, in our experimentation platform, our product guys were the actual ones that pushed for, hey, let's put LCP in our experimentation platform, so when I run an A/B test, I know if I've hurt performance and we can do something about it. They drive the business, so wherever the business wants to go, the engineers change direction and they go. One of the big stories at Agoda that we had with this is we had a bit of a shift towards building fintech based solutions. a few years back, and we had no idea about fintech. We'd never touched it before. You know, we'd done payment gateways because we processed credit cards. That's about as far as we got. But we pivoted, we grabbed a whole bunch of teams and went, you're doing fintech now. We also had to pull in legal people as well, which was interesting. We talk about cross-functional teams because the legalities of doing fintech solutions is quite complex. So we had engineers and legal people on teams and working out all the complexities. This is a quote from Steve. I'm not a big fan of Steve Jobs, but he has said some smart stuff. One of the things he said, a lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. And this is part of the innovating on behalf of the customer I was talking about, looking at the customer problems that they have and how we solve those customer problems, not just asking them what they want, because a lot of the time they don't know. Another example of this was Henry Ford. He's got a famous quote that if I asked my customers what they want, they would have said a faster horse. But Henry didn't build a faster horse, he built a car. So the other thing about product engineering teams is the work. They solve problems. This is what I was just talking about, is we generally try and look at everything like it's a problem. Even our teams that optimize our main funnel where people come in and book through Agoda, we look at that like it's a problem, right? We have a conversion funnel that doesn't convert well enough. How do we solve this problem? They're enabled. They have all the skills on the team that enable them to execute end to end. A bit like what we were talking about in Yi's last talk. And it's a big part of LeSS as well as with the feature teams, is enabling people to work end to end. And sometimes as well, that means putting business people on teams. And like I mentioned before, you know, we have some teams that have data scientists embedded on them as well. And they take ownerships of the results. This is a really big culture shock to a lot of engineers that I work with, because teams have KPIs that are based around actual business results. And I have engineers that come and work with me and they said, well, Joel, at my last company, I was responsible for delivering 10 story points. And now you want me to deliver actual business results. And I'm like, yes. You know, you need to be connected to the end-to-end solution, especially because we do A/B testing. Sometimes a test will fail and there may be something like an allocation bias. And unless you understand the way the users interact with the site, the goal we're trying to achieve, and the way the code's implemented, you can't troubleshoot that. You can't hand off allocation bias in an experiment. So that's a bit of an overview. I'm going to go into some specific technical aspects of product engineering with the practices. Some of these are things that you can pick up and try yourself too. If you haven't, I'd recommend trying some of these. But again, they're things that you can cherry pick. This isn't one big holistic thing that you need to implement. It's a bunch of observations about common practices. And you don't have to implement them all. You can just cherry pick and try whatever you want. T-shaped professionals is a big one. One of the things, so for those of you that don't know about T-shaped professionals, it's something I encourage from engineers. They have a depth of experience, right, which is their engineering knowledge, their coding. Then they have shallow experience in other areas. A good example is I mentioned A/B testing. For my engineers to able to do A/B tests, they need to understand a basic level of statistics, right? Because they need to understand statistical significance. They don't need to have a PhD in maths, but they need this basic understanding. As well as talking to business people, you need a basic business model comprehension. And so this is something I encourage from engineers, is getting this. And also, like, maybe your specialty is, you know, front-end engineering. You've never touched back-end before. Hey, you can get a shallow experience in back-end to be able to go contribute over there, and that'll help you grow as a professional. Design thinking, this is a big one. Like I mentioned before, UX is a huge emergent process, probably over the last 15 years in some of the really big successful companies. So design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from the designer's toolkit. This is a huge thing. I could do an entire talk on this. I'll leave you guys with a brief overview. There's 7 parts or stages to design thinking. There's empathy, understanding the user's needs and thoughts and emotion. Define, clearly articulate the problem. Ideate, generate a wide range of creative solutions. Prototype, build quickly low fidelity representations. Test, iterate, implement. It's a huge, huge topic. I'd recommend looking into this if you don't use it already. An example of where they're using it in the wild, Airbnb's Snow White project is a huge, good example of this. What they did with this is Airbnb storyboarded their user journey, right? From when a user books a property all the way through to when they check in and check out. They've got their engineers and their designers to do this together. And then at each stage, they write down what is the emotion the customer is feeling here. Are they stressed? Are they happy? Are they elated? And this helps the engineers understand what the user's going through and ultimately build a better product. Empathy in product, empathy is good outside of this as well. Including when you're working with other teams or stakeholders, having empathy in engineering is good at all forms. I've got a quick example. This is an example that's been cited a lot. Some of you guys might have seen this, but this is what happens without empathy. So here's a user story. As a registrar, I want to be able to search for a student when a family member calls. Sounds pretty simple, right? Basic search function, I could implement this. Easy. What the user actually said, as a registrar, I want to connect a family member and student quickly in case of emergency so the caller doesn't become distressed or aggressive during the wait. Very different, right? How I think about what I'm building is going to change a lot based on that extra context. Right? Empathy is a very important thing in engineering. Data and analytics. So one of the things that's been spoken about a lot so far is talking to customers. On the Agoda main funnel, we've got about 10 million unique sessions a day. I can't talk to 10 million people, and my engineers can't either. And that's just one day of traffic. So we do things like user groups and surveys and stuff like that, but it's not enough. How we talk to our customers is we use analytics and experimentation. Right? So when we run an A/B test, we're asking our customers a question. They react to that A/B test, that new feature in the software, and through the analytics that we collect, that's their answer to us. That's how we talk to our customers at scale, because we can't actually physically talk to them. So it becomes really important to be able to use analytics at scale, and this becomes your virtual face-to-face with the customer. It's really important to do this at aggregate too, because we work on a global scale. Our markets span places like China, Korea, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia. All these people act differently, right? And we look at them as different segments in our A/B tests as well. Sometimes an A/B test, a new feature that we're adding, maybe it might lose in Indonesia, right? And we need to ask ourselves why. These people are different, they're reacting differently to the feature. And I've had to troubleshoot tests like this with my engineers going, hey, in this particular market, it's losing, why? And you have to understand the nuances. So it's not a matter of just talking to a single user or even a subset of users. Experimentation and risk taking. So experimentation is a big thing. I spoke a lot about A/B tests. So at Agoda and a lot of these big companies, we have a test everything culture. And when I say test everything, I'm not talking about QA. I'm talking about A/B tests. So we put things into production. What we do is we split the traffic into two cohorts. One cohort gets the A variant, the other cohort gets the B variant, and we compare how many sales the A versus B gets. And if the B wins, then it's a winner. If it loses, we start digging into the data and find out why, right? And failure is an option. Failure we'd learn, right? So we have a losing A/B test. It's losing on some particular segments. Maybe it's a bug, maybe it's something we didn't know about our customers and they're telling us, and that's a learning, which is a good thing. So Netflix, if you're interested in A/B testing, have probably got some of the best blogs I've seen on the internet. Their research blog has heaps of stuff about this. If you're interested in getting into A/B testing using like cloud platforms, Google's Firebase has a great SaaS solution for A/B testing if you're just starting out and you want to try something. And there's a cultural impact of A/B testing as well. When everything is under an experiment, you become less risk adverse because you can put something into production and you can test it, right? And this creates a betting culture. Hang on, I'll go back. I wasn't ready for that. Something's missing on my notes. So a great example of this is I was in a meeting with our CPO at the time and one of our POs, and our PO was presenting some of the stuff that he was going to do in the next quarter. And everyone in the room thought it was a bad idea and thought that his idea sucked, right? Except for him. And what our CPO said to him is he said, I'll bet you a cup of coffee that doesn't work, right? Because he wasn't afraid of him doing something and failing, because either he's going to prove him wrong and everyone else in the room is wrong, or he's going to prove himself wrong and he'll learn something from that and get better. So having this A/B testing culture encourages a betting culture that's actually really good. Also, the other thing that my CPO was trying to get across in that room was his opinion without data to back it up is worth a cup of coffee. All right. So I'm going to give you guys a quick wake-up question. So if you pull out the app or scan the barcode and wake you up. So you got to join this one. It's meant to have dodgy music. I might have disabled the music though. Wait till we get a couple more plays. All right, I'll start the quiz. How many A/B tests are running on the Agoda website and app right now? Roughly. Aha! Some people have got good memories. I presented this on one of my first slides. Yes, it's about 1,000. All right, I'll keep going now that you guys have woken back up. Business model comprehension. This is really important for engineers to be able to communicate with the business people. I spoke about this before with T-shaped engineering. An example of where people are doing this in the wide, engineers are more invested, yes. An example where people are doing this in the wide, Amazon has this start with creating a press release where before they start work on a feature, they create a press release for it. Because if I can't create a press release to sell my feature, why am I building this, right? So the engineering team and the POs start with a press release and they work backwards from there to build the design of their product. Technical North Star. So technical star metrics. So technical North Star metrics are a metric that your business uses to drive its value, its core value that it's delivering. And examples of this is at Netflix, they have total watch time. Gmail has daily active users. And this metric becomes like a currency, and it also becomes ubiquitous of the business. So a good example at Agoda is we use bookings. So every time we're experimenting, we're looking at incremental booking impact. How many bookings is this experiment adding per day, right? But on the converse, for our production instance, we also look at something called booking loss. So we look at how many bookings did we lose because we had this production incident. And this then becomes a great ubiquitous metric that we can use for also communicating with between technical people and product people about value. Cool. Dealing with technical debt. So one of my biggest complaints about Scrum is that they have never put anything into the Scrum framework about technical debt. And one of my experiences with implementing Scrum over the years is that the vanilla process puts someone in charge of the prioritization that is a non-technical person, essentially. You don't have to do that. You can make the PO a technical person if you want. But in most cases, the PO is a business person. They have little to no knowledge of tech. And then when that person is in charge of prioritizing everything, I'll give you 1 or 2 years before you're drowning in technical debt. And that's been my experience. So generally what happens, companies that are successful realize this early on, and they put some other processes in place to handle this. A good example is Atlassian. They have 20% time. So at Atlassian, and they're very serious about this too. A few of my friends work there. So 20% of your time as an engineer in Atlassian, you can spend on whatever you want, right? Up to you, totally. So 2 days of sprint, go do whatever you want. Now they track this as well. And a friend of mine, when he started working at Atlassian a few years back, at the end of his probation, his manager pulled him up and said, "You have not been spending your 20% time. This is a major issue because you're setting a bad example to your engineers about this, and this needs to change." They're that serious about it. And it's because it's the way they deal with technical debt. What they tend to find, because they've got this, is that engineers will spend their time going and fixing stuff And it's not always fixing stuff at Atlassian too. Atlassian is a major contributor to a lot of the React libraries, the open source ones, because they're going out there and fixing bugs in their 20% time that annoys them, or adding features. Team autonomy is a big one. So teams are enabled. We spoke about this before. A team has all the skill sets it needs to solve the problems at hand without handoff to any other team. Ownership is end-to-end. A lot of the companies that embrace product engineering have a saying, you build it, you run it. I've heard this from so many of the Americans that have come over. Constraints and leverage is an interesting one. So this is a great method that you can teach engineers about how to talk with business people and with product people. So constraints is something that engineers generally aren't very good at. A lot of engineers, when I have conversations with them, they say things like, well, if I only had 2 more engineers on my team, if I only had an extra 1 month. You don't. This is your constraint. This is what you have to work with. So what you need to do is formulate a conversation about this is what I can get done within these constraints. And then after you've formulated that, and you can start the next part of the conversation, which is leverage. So within the constraints you've given me, I can deliver this, okay? But if you give me 1 more engineer, we can get this. Or if you can give me 2 more weeks, we can add this, right? This really helps with engineers communicating with product people about incrementality as well in building things. I've got a little video that I'll play on this. I hope it works.
This is my idea. How long will it take?
How long? Can't be done.
How long do you think it will take?
As much as I hate to agree with Mr. Bizzarini, I think he's right. This can't be done.
You agree?
I actually love what you're asking. It's new, and I'll design it. But engineering is very important. They think it's impossible. Who am I to argue? But I can say I can't design a car if I don't know the specifications. And this is something that needs to be decided.
Please decide. It's right here. This is the car to make the world forget about Ferrari.
Richard, please. A V12 touring car, double camshaft, dry sump lubrication, 5-speed transmission.
A limited slip differential, 2 ignition coils instead of 1, 6 twin-choke carburetors.
It's impossible to fit all of this in a 3.5-liter engine.
That must be 3.5. 4 liters is too heavy. We need the power, but we need the speed too. The Lamborghini 350 GT has to be as fast as a racing car.
The man wants to defy the laws of physics.
Are you listening? Either you are a car maker or you are a dreamer, Ferruccio. Please. We all have families here. We all quit our job to come and work for you. We all believe in you. We all believe in your ideas.
What if instead of cast iron, we make an aluminum metal?
I know you are the new genius in town, but people have been trying this for years.
Aluminum can withstand the heat.
What if we keep certain parts cast iron? The valves, the cylinders, the combustion chamber.
That's something new. I don't know if this would work.
But we can try it.
It could be as much as half the weight of the engine.
At least.
And the engine, maybe we can change it from dry sump to wet sump. I need to build a chassis to accommodate the double camshaft.
Good.
And the carburetors.
A rear stabilizer bar would help.
Great. Great. And it has to be ready to unveil in the Geneva Motor Show.
That's very tight.
Oh, I think we can do it.
It's 18 months.
No, 6 months. Geneva's March 21st.
Geneva this year.
Yes?
We want to do Geneva in 6 months.
Yes.
Ferruccio, please, you're talking like a madman, seriously.
Why would you ask me to design an automobile in 6 months if it doesn't yet have an engine or a chassis?
In 6 months in Geneva, people will be looking for the next Ferrari. What they will find is the first Lamborghini. The Lamborghini 350 GT. Why we're here? Tell me why we're here.
To make a car.
To make the best car. Make the greatest car the world has ever seen. As strong as Hercules, as beautiful as Sophia, and it must be ready for Geneva. It's not impossible until we fail. If we fail searching for greatness. Huh?
We need to get Bevini and Pedrazzi for fabrication and assembly.
They are brilliant and fast, and everybody wants them.
Yeah, we'll get it.
We'll have no time to make our own differentials or brakes. We'll have to buy those.
Germany for differential.
Zaradfabrik.
England for the brakes. Gerling.
Gerling will never deliver in time for Geneva.
Leave it to me. Okay, good. We chase the dream. Okay?
You're all crazy, you know that.
Yes, isn't it wonderful? Come on.
Cheers.
Yes.
So that's a great example that I saw that on constraints and leverage. You see, the engineers start off by saying it's impossible, right? Can't be done. But given the constraints, they start to say, well, actually, you know, we can get this done. Then they get given more constraints, and it's like, well, leverage. Well, we can't build the brakes. Okay, well, we can buy the brakes. You know, it's this good two-way conversation to build something that's something that is an awesome skill to teaching your engineers to deal with business and product people. And there's lots more that I won't go into today. I'm going to talk about a couple more though, just to give you guys some Google search terms if you're interested, or terms you can talk to ChatGPT about, because no one uses Google anymore. So the scope's constantly changing. Some of the other ones are jobs to be done framework. This is a really interesting new kid on the block, I think. There's one PO to go to that's using this now. It's starting to become more and more common. It's a really great way to look at your user needs. Instead of looking at what they want or what they're doing, look at what the job is they're trying to get done. Co-creation patterns. Dragan was mentioned in the last talk. He's awesome. He talks a lot about these co-creation patterns and has some really good data on them. I recommend checking them out. Team topologies, also mentioned today, is a great thing to look at. So summary and conclusion. So the key aspects of product engineering, how they stack up to Agile. So the customer-centric approach that product engineering takes is aligned with Agile. Cross-functional collaboration, iterative development, and continuous improvement. One of the things that's different though is data-driven decision making. This isn't a part of Agile. It wasn't a part of what we grew up with Scrum and things like that. Balancing feature development with technical excellence is a part of the Agile manifesto, but no one reads the second page. And focus on scalability and performance. So a lot of these big things, an emphasis on innovation experimentation. So those four last points there is differentiating between what we're doing now in a lot of the big successful companies and what was written in the Agile manifesto, I think is a sign of the evolving market, right? 20 years ago or 25 years ago when the Agile manifesto was written, we didn't have the same web scale that we're dealing with now, right? There wasn't a website, even Amazon back then didn't have millions of users a day, right? So we're dealing with a different scale that we did when these things were written and developed. So I think we need, what we're seeing is an evolution or an emergence of modern practices for scale, along with long-term health of systems. The other thing that we didn't have a lot of, or that we actually had a lot of about 20 or 25 years ago, is we had a lot of greenfield systems. We're building a lot of new things. Now we're dealing more and more with legacy systems. Agoda started back in 2003. We have a shit ton of legacy systems at Agoda that we're dealing with. And because of practices that we did, 10, 15 years ago, there's a lot of technical debt in it. I think we've still got systems, Leo, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that have no tests, right? But they still run in production. Thankfully, most of them are back offices these days, but going back 10 years ago, we did have some production systems that were like that because of this. So one of the things that we've learned is about long-term health of systems, I think, in the past 20 years. And we need extra processes on top of what we were doing 20 years ago to cope with these things. So a couple of last little exercises for fun. So if you guys have still got the app open, you can answer this question: what did you learn today? Or what did you learn in my talk? Because if I ask what did you learn today, you're going to be talking about the other talks, but I'm interested in mine. After this, I'll do a quick Q&A. You got 9 questions already. Empathy, nice. And leverage. Leverage was a really interesting one for me. I was involved, I learnt this early on. It was about 2005, I was working for a company, and we had a big on-sale season coming up, and we always used to get spikes of load. And so I put forward a proposal for $250,000 of hardware upgrades that we needed. And the boss said to me, Joel, we need to do this with $40,000 or the company's going to fold and everyone's getting fired. That's a constraint. So I hope you guys never get a constraint like that. We ended up pulling through though. It was a very interesting lesson. I got a story on my blog which I'll share the QR code for. That's cool. All right, so I'll do a quick Q&A and then I'll give you guys my blog QR code if you're interested in knowing anything else. All right. So just a comment, love format of presentation, very engaging, maybe even better for, oh, thank you. Product engineering first, but talking about Agile. Thanks. Solution to how about constantly refactoring as a part of doing the value adding work? Yeah, that's an option. One of the things that I find though that's hard with this is that and it depends on your company, right? It depends on your company and your culture. One of the problems that we have at Agoda is that we get a lot of our engineers from around Southeast Asia, and they come from very polite cultures. Then we get a lot of product people that come from places like America, Israel, and France, where they come from very aggressive cultures. And so you end up with this play of like, yeah, you know, I think when they, like, if I had American engineers and American POs, I could do this. But the culture clash, I think presents a problem. So generally from top down as management, you have to implement some things. Sure, I think that'd be great. I mean, be your own customer too, use your own products, dog food yourself. Everyone at Agoda pretty much uses the Agoda platform, and the funny thing about it is, like, everyone here uses Slack, right? Slack's become pretty ubiquitous. Our general channel in Slack is all of the Agoda engineers complaining about our platform. I had this problem booking. Look at this bug on the search page. So we're all our own customers. Do you ask why for the failed option amongst A and B? Yeah, we do. I mean, that's one of the things that we learn. With our A/B test, we segment everything. So we can see things like if an A/B test fails, was it, you know, a core market, like did it fail in Indonesia more than anywhere else, or was it a particular browser or version of iOS? Any way that we can segment our data, we segment it. You know, was it a particular landing, like did this person, are people coming from Google dropping down on the B variant for some reason? So we've got a plethora of data that we use to dig into that sort of stuff. So we always ask why. How do we pay? Oh, I forgot to mention that. Thanks for the question. So at Agoda, we have what we call 30% time. So 30% of sprint time is basically for technical improvements. Now, one of the advice I give to my engineering teams is don't make every sprint 70-30%, because then what happens is you've got too much context switching. So throughout the quarter, try and balance your sprint work out so that you end up at the end of the quarter with an average 30%. And we've been doing that for 10 years, and it works quite well. It does require like support from managers to be able to walk in and go, hey, you know, are you guys keeping up with your, on top of your technical debt? Is it sliding? Things like that. But yeah, that's what we do. Be upskilled. We run a lot of internal training. We have internal tech talks a lot. We encourage people to go to external training. I always tell my guys, if you want to go to a conference like this, do not put in for leave. Just go. For me, it's working time. You're investing in yourself. What's the definition for 20% on anything? What's this go? It really is anything. Like, you can't like play computer games, but you've actually got to be doing some work. And I think they do. I think they review it amongst the team too. So if you're doing something stupid, they'll know. But most of the time, it's about having faith that your engineers are going to do the right thing, and I think that you can. And I'll tell you one story. When I first got to Agoda, one of the first things I set up was a new CI system. I set up TeamCity. Some people argue that TeamCity is pretty shit. I think these days it is, but in 2016 it was okay. I gave every engineer at Agoda admin access to the TeamCity server. And it ran for 8 years, and we had over 1,000 engineers with admin access to the server for that 8 years. We had 2 production incidents because someone did something stupid. You can trust your engineers to do the right thing. Luxury, talk on that level, technically with bosses, businesses, scrum masters. I think that's what you should be encouraging, is that sort of conversation. I think it's something with Agoda's culture because of the multicultural environment that we have. It's encouraged from the top down. Our leaders have what we call the Agoda DNA, which is the Agoda culture, right? And we've got like pillars of 5 core values, and one of them is be direct and respectful. And you're expected to open your mouth and talk up, as long as it's respectful. How big tech runs tech project in the curious absence of Scrum? Is this a question? I don't know. I don't know if that's a question. Does someone want to ask the question that asked it? Or is it just marketing? Why the Italian can't make it? Good question. Technically that wasn't the Agile manifesto, it was the 12 principles behind it. Oh, okay. It's a technicality. What's AA testing?
It's like a test-driven development for A/B testing. You need to make sure AA testing doesn't give you anything meaningful. Otherwise, you always get something out of A/B testing.
Yeah, now and then we have like some POs saying that, okay, this is not working. Let's verify if the experimentation platform is working. They do a bunch of
yeah. We've got all the nothing tests. Yeah, we do that. We've got like tests that just don't do anything. And they basically just run flat, and they don't make any change, and they make sure that everything's completely flat. And that's how we can see the noise, and we use that. We actually have, I think it's like 200 tests that just do nothing, that are always running, so we can see what the threshold of noise is in our platform, and we use that to then feed into the calculation for statistical significance that we use.
But then if you have 1,000 A/B testing, you would need to have 1,000 AA testing.
Why?
Because otherwise, it's like you always get something seemingly meaningful from the A/B testing.
look at the second run.
The second run, yeah, we do an evaluation run. So we used to have a problem with A/B testing where, like someone could run it and there was a percentage chance that was just the and I think it used to be like 4% or 5% or something, that you'd get a false positive. And it'd say it had won, but actually it wasn't. And if you run it again, it won't. So what we now do is we do evaluation runs. So we do a second run to make sure we get out of both the runs a win. I can take it offline if you want.
It's a little bit like test later.
Yeah, but let's take it offline because I'm not sure everyone understands what we're talking about. If engineering performance are tied to business unit outcomes, do the engineers get to pick their business unit? So what happens in Agoda is we're huge. We've got heaps of engineering teams, and like if you want to move between teams, you can. And that's a critical thing for me because you don't want to keep someone on the same team doing the same thing for 10 years. They're going to get bored, right? And I've had situations in the past where I've seen that happen. I've seen guys leave with the reason I've been doing the same thing for 10 years, I want to change. And when you've got a large company and very diverse teams, you can take advantage of that and go, hey, instead of waiting for people to exit the company because they want a career change, encourage your managers to go, hey, do you feel like a career change? Do you want to move to another area of the company? Now, they don't necessarily get to pick because, like, we do have, you know, business needs. We need X amount of engineers in that area or this area. But for the most part, they can pick within a range of teams. And we generally find that it works. And I think that, how does it go to manage cloud consumption costs? So we buy we work in HP managed data centers, and so we buy all of our own hardware, and and then we run on top of that. We have an internal cost system, which is a bit like a billing system. So individual teams will be able to get a report to go, this is how much infrastructure spend my team has had in the last, you know, quarter or something like that, which is on top of the platform that we run. So yeah, I think it works quite well because then, you know, you see business value that's getting generated by a team and you can directly tie it to infrastructure costs and then go, hey, you know, maybe we should look at this because it's not making enough money, or maybe kill it. Cool, that's it for the questions.
Joel,
Yep.
I was going to have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You mentioned Atlassian just now.
Yep.
And you're from Australia. Does that make you a Jira fan?
Oh, no, it does not. I hate Jira. And actually, my friend that works at Atlassian, I would have disowned him at a friend for doing that. But actually, he told me about the interview. They were interviewing him for a job on the Confluence project. And he spent 3 hours in the interview telling them how Jira was fucked and how it should be improved. And they gave him a job on the Jira project. So because of that, so yeah, I have a friend that's working on the Jira project, and I take the piss out of him all the time too. But yeah, Jira is one of my most despised pieces of software ever.